Evening. It is 6 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining us on a Thursday night again. Welcome to the third week of the Pacific Division Sheltering Capacity Building series. This will be a weekly session. It will either be on a weekday or weekends, and this meeting will be recorded and sent out afterwards. Please mute your mic when you're not speaking. My name is Yi Wei. I am a volunteer. I joined Red Cross in 2009. I am currently the Mass Care Regional Program Lead in Los Angeles. I will be your facilitator throughout this series. We have a great presentation today. If you can type your name and the region you're from in the chat so we can all say hi to each other. And again, this session will be recorded and will be sent out in a follow-up email afterwards, probably next week. And let's turn it to Kay and Jane for the wonderful presentation.
Good evening. My name is Kay Ashton, and I am presenting with Jane Scanlon. I am in Alaska, so please know that if our bandwidth goes down, I'll need everybody to turn off their picture or their video and go from there. So we are talking about performance evaluations tonight. And what we are going to do is that Jane and I are going to go through basically how to fill out an evaluation form and some of our opinions on evaluation forms. And then when we go to the discussion, then we'll talk about difficulties that people may have and ideas on how to solve those difficulties, such as my supervisor didn't give me one, or things like that. So the first part is on how to fill one out. First of all, good hellos and good goodbyes do not only apply to clients, they also apply to the volunteers who work with us on the DR. Next slide. If you're a supervisor above, supervising is just as much a responsibility as everything else you do with our clients. Great volunteers provide great service. So take every opportunity that you can to mentor your volunteers and to give them a good review. Next. You know, one of the things that most people don't understand is why should we care about evaluations? Most of us, when we look at them, think about the person being evaluated. Well, evaluations are used for more than that. There's three groups primarily. The person being deployed, we want to make sure that they know they've done their job correctly. If there's ideas we have for growth, classes to be taken, and a genuine appreciation for the job they've completed. That's important. Also, the home territory, they are looking for volunteers to promote and to fill regional and territory positions. So our evaluation of that volunteer can go back to the home chapter and they can really see how this person did in a job on a DR. If classes are suggested, home territories should work to find those classes for the volunteers. And also division and national for promotion. Once someone gets to manager or above, their packets go to division and to national to be reviewed. So they read those comments also. Next slide. One of the things that you need to do is make schedules. It is so important because once you get into the DR, we all lose track of time. It becomes hectic, becomes chaotic. So make yourself a schedule. The most important sheet you have is your staffing sheet and when they are arriving on the DR and when they are going to depart. So when you arrive on the job, one of the first things you should do is check that staffing list to see if somebody's leaving soon and check that they Check if they have had a review done or if they haven't had one done. If they haven't had one done, please meet with them as soon as possible to get to know them. Make sure you watch their performance immediately to get a feel for what they're doing and how. Check with the people that they've worked with. And if you cannot get the past supervisor to fill one out, you're going to go ahead and you're going to have to fill one out for them. The worst thing that can happen is if they leave that job without a performance review. For the rest of the volunteers, figure out a schedule 2 meetings. One a week into their deployment, and the second one is 2 or more days out from their exit date. And actually, it's not their exit date, it's the day they're leaving the job. So there's a travel date and there's a leaving date. So make sure you have time to sit down and meet with them. Next. Meet in a space where you won't be interrupted and it's private. This is really important because this is a bonding moment. This is a moment where if you have to discuss where they need help or what they're not quite fulfilling their duties on, you need a private space. Explain why you're meeting. Make it informal. Shake off the day, because we all know if we walk into a meeting, we're carrying that stress with us. So take a few breaths and get set to go. Start by explaining why you're meeting and ask, how's it going? Because their view of how it's going is the most important thing. Other things you're looking for is, do they feel undertrained? Do they feel unappreciated? Where do they see themselves in 4 years or even a year? And how can you help them have a good deployment? If there are issues about performance, take the time to address it and get their ideas for improvement. Do they need more training? Is their supervisor giving them what they're needing? What's happening? Can we get them some classes? There's training available on every DR. It's possible that there's already training available that could help them. In closing, let them know that you are there for them and that they are appreciated. Take notes. And this isn't just from the meeting. This isn't the meeting, just for that one meeting. This is every day. When you see someone who does something special, or they offer to do something more, write it down, because at the end, when they're leaving, you're not going to remember it all. So take notes every day. Every time you see someone doing something special, jot it down. Next.
We have a, before you go to next, there's a hand up.
Mary. You're on mute, Mary? Mary, can you come off mute? Or can you write your question in the chat and we'll pick it up?
I just put something in the chat. I can't see the screen.
Is everybody else seeing the screen?
I'm seeing if you are a supervisor above, but that's it. And then it says 2 to 17, presenter, and take control. That's all I'm seeing.
Try leaving the meeting and getting back in.
Excuse me?
Exactly right.
Try leaving the meeting and then joining again. It usually fixes it.
All right. Thank you. Will do.
Thanks, Hillary. This is actually just the beginning of the work performance sheet. I'm going to step back a little bit. When you are in your job, the place that you see the evaluations you need to fill out is in your volunteer connection. It'll be right underneath your name, and it will show all of the people who work for you and performance reviews you need to do. So that's where you find it. This is a paper one, but we used it just as an example. The first part, which is the top of the performance review, will actually be automatically filled in when you get it. But please check to make sure that the dates are correct and the days that they've been on that DR. Then there's the performance criteria. Whoops. Go ahead to the next one. This is something that a lot of people don't understand, but effective, and I think in some places, does anyone know, does the new one say exceptional, effective, and inconsistent? Or does it say satisfactory?
I thought it just said satisfactory and unsatisfactory.
All right.
Satisfactory.
No, that's only for the final. That's only for the overall, the satisfactory.
All right, good. So exceptional. Effective means that they've come, they've done their job, and everything is good. Don't think as effective as a bad thing. It's not. Exceptional is when they've gone out of their way. Let's say they've, offered to do extra jobs and things like that. So again, take a look at that. Effective is not bad. And I think a lot of people feel that it's just average. It's not. You've come, you've done your job. Exceptional is when you've stepped above and beyond. So that's really important to know. This is also really important because you will use it later on in your narrative. And so it's a good check. Once you write your narrative, check back with this and see if it matches. If it doesn't, then you need to change either this or your narrative. Next. This is the same thing, except it's for supervisors. So again, it's the same thing. And don't feel badly about putting not observed. The worst thing you could do is guess about someone. So if you haven't seen it, then it's not observed. Next. This is the most important part of the review. Is satisfactory and needs improvement. And this is the narrative. We are going to approach it in a way that we both thought was a good way for everyone to look at it. But take your time on this. Be honest and be thorough. If there is something that they need to correct, let them know. It's okay. And take some time away. If you can break away for a few hours and have someone who can take your job for a few hours, do that and find some place quiet to fill these out. If you can't, they may have to be done at night. But whatever you do, don't rush it. It's important. And again, the performance review should not hold any surprises to the volunteer. If you haven't talked about it before this review, you shouldn't be putting it on there. So I am going to turn it over to Jane. Thank you.
Thanks, Kay. That was now on the part of the approach writing the narrative. So part of the narrative is, what is the job that's filled? And a lot of times we're talking about, even what is it that they're doing? We have to talk about, what are we doing there? Are we working on a fire? Are we working on a hurricane? Or is it congregate? Is it non-congregate? Mass casualty. Part of it off of the IAP or any of that. Just give them some information about what it is. What is this job and where is it at? Like during the fires in Northern California, things were very confusing on where people physically were. So I think that has to be a part of it. So what the setting.
Jane, your audio is breaking up.
My audio is breaking up?
Correct.
Oh.
Are you using Bluetooth, Mike?
There was
No.
background noise from another participant.
Are we okay now?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Okay. If can turn off their mics, that'd be great. Sorry, just let me know if I break up again. But pretty much we're just setting the story. We're talking about what the story is, putting the setting in there, and then what the conditions were. Make sure that when you first start reading the presentation, that evaluation, you know what is going on in the situation. So the next part is the duties. You know, what was it that even happened? What did this here do? You know, what did they take better? You know, there has to be challenges on every job. You know, you can even and just like put, you know, 3 things. You can put committed and then write a paragraph, or passionate something. So you can always write words and then add a whole paragraph afterwards on words. You can use 10,000 characters on this. This is really the part that it really goes back to what you checked above. So if you checked everything as exceptional, then the evaluation should be reflected right here. What exceptional things did they do? You know, what challenges were overcome? What independent work complete? So it's one of those that we really make sure the narrative matches the boxes
Jane,
that you
Jane,
click.
your audio is really bad.
Yeah, your audio is really bad. Do you want me to take over?
Yes, sorry, I don't know what happened to my audio. I'll off.
Oh, I'm sorry, but it really is breaking up. If you figure out what it is, please jump back on. But just like Jane said, this is the meat of it. This is where you really want to recognize that person. You want to give them a chance for improvement. You want to say, did they improve? So again, this is really important. This is the crux of it. I like Jane's idea of going ahead and putting down words that describe that person and then just writing a narrative around it. Next. This is an example. So just everybody take a second and read it. This is an example. So, you know, again, if you've talked to him about chain of command, and he was having difficulties with it, it could be because he didn't know who he reported to, and that's something you can fix, or it was something else. But again, saying that we did discuss it, that helps. Also, that Paul was responsive to the information you were giving him, and more training is suggested, such as ConOps. So again, you can put it in the narrative, and then later on, we'll show you where you can put it then in another place. Next. The good goodbye. Express your gratitude. Make the volunteer feel appreciated, because without that, we can't do it. Without them, we can't do anything. And make them want to deploy again. This is something they'll take with them. If you have a bad review, you'll take it with you. If you have a good review, you'll take it with you. So again, here's an example of what you can say. Next. Again, this is just another part of the form. It's down towards the bottom. The disaster training recommended to enhance. So obviously I'd put, you know, ConOps 3.0 down here. Also think out of the box. Don't think of just Red Cross classes. If it's a soft skill that they're needing, go ahead and put it down. There's the Precipio classes. There's all sorts of things. But think outside the box. It is not just Red Cross classes. And then additional experience recommended. Maybe you want them to take a leadership position within their region to get them more experience. So again, there's that. And then there's this section. Based on the performance, would you want them promoted? Do you want them to continue at the same level? Again, these are important. If let's say someone comes to me and says, I want to be a supervisor, but you know they're not ready to be a supervisor, here's an idea. You can click the worker continues at the same level. But then in your recommendations, you can say to the chapter that this person gets more training in supervisory, whatever it is that they need. Maybe it's soft skills and maybe it's training, but whatever it is, put it down and say they should continue at the same level. However, once they take the training, the chapter can make the decision of whether they move to supervisor or not. Then you go ahead and you send it to the reviewer. The reviewer will be your supervisor, and the reviewer will make comments. It is possible, and has happened, that perhaps the reviewer does not agree on this evaluation. They can send it back to you, and then they should discuss with you what they think you need to change. So that's where it goes next. Then at the end, it goes to the worker. The worker is, I'm sorry, chats are popping up in front of my face. The worker then gets it, and it pops up in their volunteer connection. It used to be that you didn't get notified. I understand now that they're changing that and that the volunteer will be notified when it appears in their box. They go ahead and make their comments and then they submit it. If you don't make any comments or you don't send it on within a certain number of days, it will go forward automatically. So once that comes up in your box, you want to open it, you want to make your opinions known at that point in time. So that's, yeah.
We have a hand up and we have 2 comments in the chat. So the first comment, Tom is saying that originally we were taught that the evaluation form is not submitted as final until the workers signed off on it. I learned the hard way that this is not true unless the glitch has been fixed. We also have another comment says, very important to remind the deployment volunteers that only region makes the decision for promotions.
Right. So you can make a recommendation for promotion, but if you really don't feel you have enough information, then go ahead and send it back and say, I'm not making that recommendation, but it's possible that your region will make that recommendation for you. So was the hand up?
The hand is down already. Jeff, you had your hand up earlier?
That was an accident, sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead and next. Yeah, actually, that was the review that I just walked through. Sorry. There are during the DR that you are on, usually there are classes being offered on how to write evaluations. If you don't feel confident, take it. Take that class. Just take a little while out of your day and take that class. So that's a really good option for everyone. Go ahead. This is who we are. You can contact us anytime. But now what we want to discuss is some of the difficulties that people have come across with performance evaluations. One of the most common is that your supervisor didn't give you one. We don't want that to happen. So really take the initiative, remind your supervisor that you want your evaluation done before you leave. It can't always happen, but it should happen. And you can go to their boss also and say, I haven't gotten it. If you haven't gotten it by the time you leave, you can hunt them down. It's very important to keep a copy of the IAP because that has everybody's contact information on it. So you want them to fill it out. If it hasn't been done by the time that they leave, then it goes automatically to their manager. So they get dinged for not doing it. It's really important that these evaluations are done, preferably by the time that the volunteer is leaving, but that can't always happen because of the chaos of a DR. But if you haven't gotten it, hunt them down and get one because it's very important you have it in your profile. So let's go for questions now.
Okay, we have several in the chat and I do see several hands up. So this question, Tom said, can I get an answer? Is the worker sign off required before the performance evaluation is submitted as final?
It is, but they get passed on if the worker has not responded within a certain number of days. So I hear that they are expanding that window and that they are going to notify you when it hits your box. So those were two things that were missing, but I hear that they are improving the situation. Hillary, is that correct?
That is what I've heard from workforce.
Good.
That they are working on that in BC, but who knows exactly what the timing of that will be.
Right.
So my personal experience is that when I do an evaluation online on Volunteer Connection, the worker does not have to be signed off before I submit. I can submit and they will review it after I submit. And there's another question that Alan is asking, am I sending this to my reviewer before I meet with the volunteers?
No, you are meeting with the volunteer, then you are filling out the evaluation. Once you fill out that evaluation, it gets passed on to the reviewer.
Okay, and Santi Hanagami has a question, says, what if your supervisor is constantly changing? I've been on DROs where I've spent 5 days driving across the country, did feeding for a few days, then working in warehouse, and she has so many supervisors, so she doesn't know which one should give the eval because they were not there long enough for her.
The rule of thumb is if you work for someone for 3 days, you can request an evaluation. If you work for someone for 7 days, they are required to give you one. You can ask a supervisor to go ahead and give you one if you've worked for them for 3 days.
Thank
And
you.
other people, please chime in. I know we have lots of experienced people on this. This is more of a discussion, not just asking me questions, but please, if you don't like my answer or you think you have a better one, please chime in.
Okay, we have hands up. Robin Cohen, you're the first. You want to go first?
To chime in, two things. One, I found it's really good to take how to do evaluations before you go. When you have time to look at it carefully, you're not in the stress moment. The other thing is I've done several very nice evaluations, printed one up and I took it with me the last time I was deployed. So when I'm filling it out, I have an example of the wording. I didn't copy the wording, but I had an example of what it should look like and what a good one looks like.
That's a great idea.
Added to I have a packet of paperwork I've discovered that it helps to take with me, and I've added that to the packet. It's amazing. After all these years, I've never been asked for an evaluation. I'm waiting for.
Thank you so much, Robin. Mike, Mike
Amy,
Rodriguez, yes.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second? There's a lot of questions, comments in the chat about the process. And I think it's around the DRO roster in volunteer connection and the timing of things and passing from one person to another. And I wonder if it might be helpful to explain that quickly before answering each individual question. And I was actually going to throw JoJo under the bus for that since she works in workforce.
I like that.
JoJo?
JoJo is the expert.
And she's not shy.
Oh,
Throw
hi,
on the bus.
guys. And you are definitely throwing me under the bus because I keep going back and forth to my kitchen to hear. Thankfully, I was sitting in front of the computer. Hi, everyone. You know, I'm going to tell you first, I'm going to be a little foggy on this because it's been, quite a while, a number of months. But so in terms of it, once you submit, you hit submit, it posts up to your supervisor. Your supervisor has that, and I want to say about a 2-day window. If they do not respond one way or the other, then it automatically is posted to Volunteer Connection into the worker's profile. And then they have, I believe, 3 days was the window of them putting in comments and notes to it or not doing anything. Now, of course, if they want to respond and don't get a chance to, then they talk back when they're off deployment, they talk with their workforce engagement or volunteer services to help them get access to putting notes into their review. And then now a supervisor has up to, somebody noted there, I think if you are not able to get those done while you're on the job and you roll off, you have up to 7 days to get those evaluations completed. And kudos to the presenters and saying, start taking notes throughout the deployment, whether you're doing it in your notebook or you're doing it online in Volunteer Connection, you can go right to their evaluation and start putting notes in the narrative section as you go along. Did I answer that?
Perfectly.
Okay, and then Hillary, yay. They have needed to, national headquarters has needed to fix that glitch. The biggest glitch in evaluations has been that the worker did not know, they did not receive a ping that evaluation was posted to their profile. And often so many people have missed their window of time to add anything into the narrative and see it as it was written.
Yeah.
So
hopefully
yay,
that's done quickly.
There you go.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, we all think, oh my God, what is the worker going to say? Well, one, you should already know that because of your relationship with that worker. But the second thing is you can be surprised. A worker can say really nice things back to you. So again, it's really important that we do them in a timely manner. We do them honestly and fairly, and that they have a chance to respond, because this evaluation is not a one-way street. It's a two-way street. So it is critically important.
This is JoJo again. If I may add, someone had noted in there earlier that they've had, multiple supervisors. And we have mentioned when we do training on the job that if you've had 2 supervisors over that period of time, then you should get 2 evaluations. and not just one. The other piece of it is if you feel like you don't know who your supervisor is, or you have these multiple ones listed, then please go back to staff services and have them help clear that up. That's really, really important for staff services or in workforce to fix that for you so that you know who your supervisor is right from the get-go.
So there are several things I want to add. Number one is that the online version of Volunteer Connection is not the only way to do an evaluation. Let's say 7 days passed or 10 days passed and your supervisor never did you an evaluation. You can always reach out to that supervisor and they can do a paper form that can be submitted to the staff services, or they can be submitted to your own region that the region can upload it to your volunteer profile. Number two is that if you are a supervisor, if you're a lead, a activity lead, you will receive a staffing report, a daily roster from staff services. So one of the jobs that we do want to make sure is that you check your roster to make sure that everyone listed on the roster belongs to you. And as a service associate or as a field worker, that you want to make sure that you know who you're reporting to directly. And at the end, if that person is not the person that turned out to be, let's say you're supposed to report to John Smith and you were repeating to Peter, and you wanted to make sure that staff services is correcting those on the system, so then the correct person can do your reports. I once had, I forgot 14, 15 people on the list that I didn't even recognize. I didn't know who they are. I had to call staff services and say, hey, I don't know who they are. Can you help me to find out who they're actually assigned to? So those were important. Okay, before we address anything in the chat, I do want to go to the hands. The next one is going to be Mike Rodriguez. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. First of all, I want to report that everything I've heard is very, very good. Excellent ideas. Thank you guys very much. Secondly, the chat icon has not come up for me in the last 5 or 6 online Teams meetings, and I've tried rebooting and everything else. So I have no way of adding information on the chat. And third, I was deployed a couple times last year, and in one scenario or one site, I was doing sheltering. I was an SA, but at times I served as a supervisor when the manager of the shelter was gone. Anyway, I worked with this shelter manager for 9 days, and then he left. And he promised he would do a shelter eval for me. We never did meet, like you have mentioned, prior to his leaving, per se, to talk about performances. So anyway, and then I ended up getting a second manager, and he didn't do an eval when I left also. So I just wish, I hope that this type of training strengthens those problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And one of the things that we do suggest is that you do get a Red Cross email address if you used it frequent enough, because certain functions, the Teams has limited functions when you're a guest versus you have an organization email. So that will help solve the problem. And the other thing I want to point out real quick is that if you don't want to see videos, there are 2 ways that don't see the videos on there. If a person that is presenting that has the video on and we cannot turn it off on my end, there's one way that you can do it. It's on the More button, the 3 dots. If you scroll all the way down, there's a section that says turn off incoming video. So even if the person on the other end that they have the video on, you can still turn off on your end. It says turn off on incoming video, so you won't see anyone at all. Okay,
yeah,
so
I do have a Red Cross address, and I still get this guest scene coming up.
Do you want to shoot me an email or text me real quick? I mean, later on, then we can figure out what happened.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Let's, I know we have 3 hands more, then we'll go to the chat. Dual, you have a question, Parks?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. Enjoy the presentation. The biggest problem I ran into in the DR is you're promoted to a supervisor for 2 days. Then you're sent out to a different job, a new supervisor above you. Then you come back to the other job. By that time, you've had 4 or 5 other supervisors above you. And nobody done anything or filled out any evals. You go to your supervisor, who's now head over in Sacramento, and he says, I'll try to find out, and nothing ever gets done.
I think that's the crux of why we want people to understand what evaluations are and why they are so important. I think that most people on the ground don't realize that other people, not just the volunteer, but other people use these performances, and that, you know, it's so critically important that people get them. And I think, you know, this is a problem that's been going on since I started 16 years ago. You know, we need to fix the process. We need to talk about it. We need to make sure that their manager knows that they're not doing their job. So this is something you are actually owed when you leave a DR. This is ask them over and over again.
Because it was charging.
Go above them
Enough, but
if you have to. You know, I mean, you should get this. And one of the reasons why you should get a Red Cross address and keep an IAP is that, you know, you can just type in their name and you can find them later on. So don't give up. You know, one of the reasons that we say keep contacting them is because once they realize you're not going to give up, then maybe they'll do it. But you are owed it. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. And Michael Seacrest?
Yeah, I think you've actually kind of answered the question. I've had DRs where I've had multiple supervisors and none of them had me for 7 days. And but multiple, you know, they had me for 3 days or more. And I still, like you said, you can ask, but you didn't receive. And, you know, I've had this happen to me multiple times. And so now I'm just seeing anything, you know, go to human resources and also keep an IAP and keep trying to contact them, although it's easy for them to ghost you, and they still only have it 7 days. So after 7 days, regardless of how much, you're just not going to get it. At least that's my understanding at this particular point.
So this is Jane. I'm hoping that my audio has improved. So here's a thought that I tried to put out to volunteers I've worked with. Every day at the end of your shift, whoever you think your supervisor is, just give them a note on what you did that day, a situational report, a situational awareness. Because I know a lot of times we're so far from who our supervisor is. If they're in Sacramento and 3 hours away and we never ever meet these people. And if anything, it gives you the narrative at the very end. And what did we find? If the performance evaluation is never done, it just keeps going. So actually at the end, whoever has been stuck with all of these, and I think eventually you could run it down and you would already have a narrative of what it is every single day, and you could forward it to them. Because I do know, and I do hear a lot of you, you know, being so frustrated that nobody even knew what you did and you don't know who your supervisor is. That is just a suggestion so that we all, you know, remember what we do every day, because we do forget day to day because it does get a little busy. I hope my audio was back.
It's not. It's still breaking up, Jane. But we could hear your answer, and it was a good one.
Okay, and Alan.
Yeah, I just have a quick suggestion for volunteers that want to get evals. Before you are leaving your DR, just 3 days before, remind your supervisor that you want an eval before you leave. So that puts the pressure on that supervisor to actually book the time to spend with you to do that evaluation. And the same thing the second day before you're ready to leave, when can we meet to do the eval? And then the same thing the first day. And 9 times out of 10, if you do that 3 times, you're going to get an eval before you leave. There are instances where the DR is just too crazy and it's not going to happen. But for the most part, your supervisor hopefully wants to give you an eval. And if you're reminding them that every 3 days leading up to your depart, you're going to have an eval before you leave. And that's what I'd recommend.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you. So we have lots of comments in the chat. So basically we're talking about the communication is really, really, really important. And self-advocating is also extremely important. If you don't have an evaluation, reach out to the supervisor, reach out to someone or the supervisor above the supervisor to get your evaluation. And so Helen has a question in the chat saying that more than people are not comfortable making judgments about other people's performance unless it is just so easy to do. And we have one more hand. I think Jojo is your hand.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of things on the, when it says people are not comfortable, that is part of why supervisors take the Supervising the Disaster Workforce to help them give the tools that they're going to need to do the evaluation, because you don't, while I'll say it's business and not personal, but you learn to use the right language and how to do that for people that you're supervising. That's what training's all about, is to strengthen you in your job. And the second piece of it is use the resources that are available to you. As others were saying, use the IEP to know supervisor. In the past, up to this time, we had a staff advocate that you could talk to. And now there's no longer staff advocate, and those jobs are going to other places. But you can certainly put comments into the workforce survey that should be being done every few days or once a week at least during your DR. And you could put some comments there, and those are responded by workforce and the staff relations, all the time. So if something's going on, they can at least begin to address that and have it addressed during some of the meetings with management and all those different levels.
I just want to mention, I agree, everything you just said. The other thing is too, there's also classes on Precipio too. So take them all. Take all that you can get in writing an evaluation if you are uncomfortable with it.
Can you explain how to get to Precipio for people that don't know it?
Yeah, Precipio is just another part. Well, wait a second. No, Alan, why don't you explain it?
Yeah, sure. So from Volunteer Connection, when you're on your Volunteer Connection, if you click on Edge, when you click on Edge on the right side, there's a bunch of red boxes, and the last one on the right side is Precipio. When you click on Precipio, it gives you all kinds of tools that you could use in classes that'll go from anywhere from office tools like spreadsheets and Word to soft skills on how to negotiate, how to manage people. So that's how you get to Precipio, and it's just a great resource for all of us.
Thank you, Alan.
That was last week.
Okay.
Thank you for
And
calling.
if you are not talking, can you please mute? Somebody is off of mute. Thank you.
We have another question in the chat. Alan is asking, how is the process different from local DR deployments? He responded as a shelter service associate 3 shifts and DAT service associate 1 shift. And so he's asking, should he request a evaluation for either of these deployments?
Yes. One of the things is too that we should be doing blue skies evaluations. I know, unfortunately, in our region, we do not. But that should be something, talk to your DPM, talk to the people that you work with. in Blue Skies to make sure you get it. In local DRs, absolutely, you should get them.
So, Alan, for that, we don't do local evaluations for that for disaster action team, especially for one single DAT call on paper, but you can definitely ask your supervisor. So when I go out as a supervisor, I do a briefing and debrief with the team to give the feedback as, how we did as a group, what can we improve on, and what we did well, and how, what do we want to do in the future. So that's something that you can ask.
Iwe, I know that just recently we had someone go for a DAP manager position, and the division required evaluations on that person's performance. So I think that's coming down the line. So let's get used to it now and start doing those, because they are important and they will be important for promotion.
And those are not from DAT essays, right? You're talking about DAT SVs to MNs, correct?
Yes.
Right. So we're talking about the shift for DAT essays.
Okay.
I think Anna Lane's hand is up.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I have a question about a performance where you've written the performance, and I like to give the performance live to that person, have a dialogue before they leave, but something might come up during that discussion that could be important enough, where they disagree or there's an issue. Do you actually then capture the result of that dialogue in the performance review? And Kay, by the way, you were the person you were my manager at the time that it happened with one of the feeding people in Gold Country, where we had to talk to him about how much he was spending every day on his mission card. But right. Should something like that be, that conversation be put into the evaluation, how they reacted to their performance review?
Yes. One, if you talk to them during their thing, how did they react to the conversation? Absolutely. If somebody is not willing to hear what you have to say, then that's a red flag, and all red flags should go in there. Now, they should not be surprised by that, but definitely in the case you're talking about was a little bit tricky, but yeah, definitely conversations that you have with that person and whether they respond to them or not is important to put in there. And, in that case, had you had all the information, you might have said that this person does not come back until they have more training. But unfortunately, not all the information was available. So you do the best you can. There's going to be things that can't come up. And so that's when you bring in workforce engagement or the staff services. Sorry.
Yeah, which is what we did. But
yeah,
so I didn't know what I should do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
okay.
You should always document exactly what has happened, good, bad, or not. That's part of it.
Yeah, and actually, I think a performance review is a tool to allow a person to get better. And so absolutely. If they react badly to it, that's kind of an indication that maybe, there's going to be a potential problem down the line. Thank you.
Yeah.
Billy, your hand is up.
Okay, here I am. Is there a place in Volunteer Connection where we can actually read our past evaluations other than it just says satisfactory or whatever it was?
This has been changing lately off and on, so somebody will have to correct me if I am wrong. I know that if you go to your DRO experience and you go to that DRO, if it says that you got a satisfactory review, if you click on satisfactory, it should bring up your whole evaluation so you can see exactly what you said.
I am there right now and it does not do that.
You need to go into your profile from Volunteer Connection.
I am there. I'm looking at one, for instance, Colorado flood in 9/13. It
And it
says
says
satisfactory.
satisfactory?
It says satisfactory, but I can't.
Okay, okay. This is Sherry. I can answer that one.
Thank you.
The only ones that you are going to be able to see are the ones that have been created since we have gone with electronic evals. So anything before the last year or two, you will not be able to open in Volunteer Connection.
Yeah, he said Colorado, which was just not that long ago.
Well, let's see, where is it? 2013.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's
Then
not
one
going to be
A
in
long
there.
time ago. It's not going to be on there.
Right.
It's
The other
only
thing
since
I
we've been doing
know is I'm sorry, Sherry, I'm talking over you. One of the things I know that happened to us is, did I just lose everybody or is everybody there? Okay.
I'm here.
Okay. I know that our region went in and took those ones that were expiring and actually copied them and put them into our documents. You can check there, but they may be gone. I think it's really important that when everyone gets back from an DRO, that they go ahead and go in there and pull it up and get a copy of it and keep it somewhere else, not just in Volunteer Connection.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think Anna, your hand is up again. Is it the
No,
same hand?
sorry, I just sorry,
Okay,
I forgot to
problem.
put it down.
Okay, no problem. We do have time for one more question, then we'll be answering the question in the chat and close out the session. So Cynthia brought up a very good topic, as in what is workforce supposed to do when they get an evaluation after leaving the DR? The person completing the DR did not speak to you about this incident or the evaluation, and they marked you not satisfactory. So what do you do?
You immediately go to your workforce engagement and see if you can find out if you can put some text into that evaluation. Unfortunately, at this point in time, there's no way to get an evaluation pulled, unfortunately. So go to your workforce engagement, see if they can get that evaluation opened so that you can reply to it.
You are correct on that, Kay. I'm just backing you up.
Yeah.
It's a process, but it can be done.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Jane. And I'm hoping my audio is a teensy bit better. So I have strong feelings about getting any evaluation that doesn't reflect the job. And if it was done poorly, especially needs improvement, and the volunteer doesn't know about it before they come home, it's hurtful. We have lost volunteers last year because it happened. And I, as the regional lead, I completely ignore them. I find them to be a waste of anyone's time to write them if there was no follow-up or they talked to the volunteer before they left the job. It doesn't add anything to their experience for taking away from their life for 2 weeks to help us out. That's it.
Yeah, and I will close by saying the evaluation is probably one of the most important tools to keep volunteers, happy, engaged, and want to continue. And that's what we want from every volunteer. So we want that volunteer to feel appreciated. We want them to feel that we're honestly treating them fairly. So please, if you're writing evaluations, take your time. And if you are receiving an evaluation, help your supervisor write it by meeting with them. And also, if you don't, advocate for yourself over and over and over again to get one, because everyone is entitled to an evaluation.
Thank you so much,
I
Kay.
did drop some, I dropped some links at the very part at the very front of this meeting tonight for all of the instructions, participant guides, and everything in regards to the instructions from National on performance evaluations.
Thank you so much, Jane. I'm going to close out this session. Thank you so much, Kay and Jane, for presenting today. And thank you for all the good questions in the chat. And we will see you next week, same time, same link, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we're going to talk about unsolicited donation management. I will see you next week and look out for the email sending out next week. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.